21% of adults in the UK do not have £1,000 to call upon in an emergency, and a further 10% do not have any cash at all. That's according to the Financial Conduct Authority, and it explains why the rich get richer while the poorer get left behind. In this video, I want to explain exactly the differences in finances between the two, and if you fall into the category of not having many savings or even being in debt, I want to give you the steps, the exact steps needed so that you can build up your savings, start investing, and actually get to the financial stage that you want to be. So let's get into it. First things first, we know the UK government wants more people to start investing. However, you do need to be in a financial state of security before you can do so, because investing comes with risks and you may lose your money. Now, what I want to do is start off by explaining the differences in bank balances, basically, or bank accounts, between the rich and the poor, which potentially the category you may be in. Now, the first things first, let's have a look at the finances of the rich, or at least the state their banks are in. So, them. The first thing to understand is that they will probably have zero consumer debt. That means no outstanding credit card debt. That means no buy now pay later loans. That also means they probably have enough savings to last them at least the next several months. So if they were to suddenly lose their jobs, they would be okay for at least several months, if not more. And finally, what they will also be doing is taking excess money every month and adding it to their long-term investment accounts. So long-term investing. Now, what I mean by long-term is that they won't need this money for at least the next 5 years, maybe 10 years or longer. But you need to be in a financial situation where you won't need that money for 5 years or more. And these are the things that get you there. Now, let's talk about the position that you or the majority of people may actually be in. Many people do have credit card debt, and I'm talking about unpaid credit card debt. So most people, just write this down, unpaid CC debt, most people do have credit cards. Even the rich have credit cards, but they pay their balances in full every single month. Now, there are many people who don't do that. They will take out $1.5 grand, $2 grand from their credit card and only pay the minimum amounts. That means that they're going to get interest on the rest of that balance, and it could be 30% interest or more depending on your bank account. So, you may have unpaid credit card debt that is going to be building up quickly over time. The next thing that many people have is they use companies like Klarna, buy now, pay later. So what is happening with this? That was meant to be buy now, pay later. I can't even spell. Let's start that again. Buy now, pay later. Okay. BY pay later. Right. I clearly can't multitask. Okay. When you do this, you are robbing from your future self. For example, if you buy a new mobile phone for £1,000 and you decide to split that payment up over 3 months, you're paying £333 per month for the next 3 months, which means for the next 2 months, you will have that much less that you can use on other things. So what you're doing is borrowing from your future, and that is somewhere you don't want to be. So you may also have buy now, pay later, credit card debt, and no savings at all. No or very little savings. Now, why is this a problem? Well, if you lost your job over the next month or 2 months or 3 months, you might be able to pay your bills for the next month or two. But beyond that, you're going to be stuffed. And so you will have to rely on the unemployment benefits. But that is a very small amount of money. And it's not really somewhere you want to be in for very long. Now, if you have very little savings, it also means you cannot afford to take the risk that comes with investing, because investing does carry risks. And let's face it, even if you put your money in gold, in the S&P 500, in, the US stock markets and the British stock markets, wherever it may be, there may be a period of time, even several years, where the money is worth less than what you put in. And so you need to have enough money set aside in your savings, somewhere that you can take from immediately, before you start investing money or risking money that could be down for the next several years. And so you're most definitely not going to have any money to invest. So no investments. Now, do you see what's going on here? These people here on the left, the rich, they're slowly building up their wealth over time. Now, because they've spent time building up their savings, right, where they have savings for several months, when they get their next paychecks, as long as they're not overspending, they can put a greater chunk into that, a greater chunk of that money into their long-term investing accounts, continuing to build up their wealth. But what are you doing? Well, you're probably paying off your buy now, pay later loans, or your unpaid credit card debt, which is just ballooning in value. And so you're taking more and more money every month to pay off debts, while they're taking more money every month to invest. And that's where the difference is. But the good news is that you can change this around, and it all comes down to financial habits that you put in place. You don't necessarily have to be a millionaire in order to start saving and investing. Anyone can do it on any salary. You just have to do the maths and make the maths work. So now let me show you how you can change your fortunes around, how you can change your finances around, so that you can go from here to here. So let's get into that. Okay, here's how I want you to see this. Let's say you're someone on an average salary of around £35,000. And let's say at the end of each month, you bring home £2,300. I'm going to draw a quick chart here. Basically, it will be this. Your money in and your money out. So let's say this is, what on earth was that? 2.3k. Now, the reason why I've drawn these two charts is simple. You might be bringing in 2.3k, but your expenses might be around 2.1k or 2,200 or even 2,300 or more, putting you into debt. Now, what you need to do, so let's say up here, if your expenses over the course of the month exceed the 2,300 that you're bringing in, then you're going to be going into debt, maybe on your credit card, or utilizing buy now, pay later loans. What you need to do is bring your expenses down from up here to down here. And at this point, this is where you now start having excess money, even if it's £100 or £200 a month. You want to ensure that you do have some excess money that you can start to put away in savings or pay off that debt. So how do you do it? Well, you know that your money in is probably going to be fixed every month, especially if you're full-time employed. That's not really going to change unless you find a second job or another part-time job or a weekend job. But for most people, the reality is that probably won't change. So now you have to look at your money out. Now, your money out is going to be made up. Majority is going to be housing. And that could include, let's say if you own your own property, it will be your mortgage repayments. Or if you're renting, it will be your rent. So this will include housing, all the bills, the council tax, everything that you have to pay every month. If you have your own home, then this is going to be more of a fixed cost. because it's incredibly expensive to move. But if you're renting, this is more of a variable cost where you do have the opportunity to move to a different location or a different apartment, somewhere that's cheaper. But for now, let's say housing is going to make up most of your monthly expenses. Let's just call it £1,200. And if you're in London, that's going to be a very, very realistic cost. The next thing might be a vehicle, like a car. Now, this is where a lot of people get this wrong. They think that they've got to finance a new or very nearly new car because those cars will be less likely to break down and, maintenance, servicing for a period of time will be paid for through that financing. And so what happens is you end up financing a car for all in about £600 a month, maybe more, depends on your insurance. So already between these two, you're at £1,800, leaving you about £500 for everything else in the month. Now that could be your subscriptions, like Netflix, Amazon Prime, Disney Plus, Spotify. So we'll put in subscriptions there, and that could easily come up to £50 or more. You've also got food. You've got clothing. You've got all of the unexpected bills. But let's just leave it at food and clothing for now. There'll also be travel and everything else, right? The point is, you've got £500 left to play with for everything else that you are going to be spending throughout the month. And that probably won't get you very far. Food could cost £150 to £200 per month easily for one person. You might have childcare costs. You might have to replace your clothes more often, especially your child's clothes. There are many things that could come into play here, and £500 isn't going to get you anywhere. So this is a problem, and this is a very real problem that many of us face. So what can you do about it? Because if you're spending more than the $2,300, you're going into debt, and it becomes a debt spiral somewhere you really don't want to be. Well, what you can do are a few things. The best things you can do are to tackle the things that make the biggest impact. That could be housing. Now, if you have your own property, then it's more expensive to move, and I understand that. But if you're renting, you could go from renting an apartment in a nicer area to somewhere further away from your place of work. That might mean a longer commute, but it could also mean you saving a few £100 a month just there. So potentially moving to a different area or to a smaller apartment might save you a couple of £100 or more. So let's say you could save £300 here just by moving. But, that's a very difficult thing for many people to do, so let's ignore that for now. The next thing is going to be your car. Now, why are you paying £600 a month on a car that's worth maybe £30,000 when you can buy a car outright for £4,000 to £5,000? Now, yes, old cars can be unreliable, but there are ways to buy cars that will give you the best chance of them actually working and functioning, and cars that are cheap to maintain even if they do go wrong. What you need to do is look up something like AA approved used cars. So, get rid of your car that's on finance, okay, and look up AA approved used cars. Now, these will be cars from 2015, even before then, let's say 2010, 2011, 2012. These AA approved used cars will have been checked, so the engines will have been checked, the mechanics will have been checked, the cars will be working, you won't have any problems with that. The only thing I would say though is to make sure that you don't go for the expensive brands. Like, you don't want to be buying a Mini Cooper, you don't want to be buying a BMW or a Mercedes or an Audi or any of these expensive brands. What you want to be buying is a Ford, a Kia, a Vauxhall, any of these cheaper brands that are also reliable. Because even if they do go wrong, which should hopefully be rare, the maintenance costs will be very low. So think about it. If you're paying £600 a month, that's £7,200 per year. on a car, yeah? £7,200 per year. Whereas if you buy a car outright, a used car, let's say you buy a car for £5,000, okay? Your insurance on top of that is another £1,000. And anything else that might come up, let's just say another 300, let's say another £400. Let's be realistic about that. All right, £400 to get it serviced, MOT, and so on. So for the first year, you spend £6,400. That's already less than what you're spending by financing a new car. Okay, now on the second and third year, you've paid the car off, which means now, every year, you're spending £1,400 on average. See the difference? That difference there, from 7,200 to 1,400. That's a difference of £5,800 every year you have just saved by going from a new financed car to an older car that is AA approved, that one is going to be reliable, and secondly, cheap to maintain and repair if you ever need to. That is going to be the biggest place where you could probably save money. Now, when it comes to food and clothing and makeup, you can also save money there. For example, food, instead of shopping at Morrison's or Asda, shop at Aldi and Lidl. If you're already doing that, then great. With makeup, there are many expensive brands people buy from. You can go to the cheaper brands. Better yet, don't wear makeup or wear very minimal makeup, because makeup ruins your skin and it forces you to spend even more money on expensive skincare treatments. The same goes with hair. And for men, the same applies. And for men and women, there are many, when you go back to food, there are many high protein foods that are literally a waste of your money. They're overpriced and really don't do anything. And so there are places where you can certainly cut down on to save money every month and go from being in debt by spending too much to bringing it down and actually being able to save every month and use that excess money to pay off your high interest debts. Over time, if you do that, you will go from spending too much money every month to finally moving into this category here, and that's exactly what you want. Because once you're in this situation where you're spending less than you're bringing in every month, now you can work to pay off your debts. And then you can work to increase your savings. And then finally, you can add to your long-term investments. That is the way to do it without having to get a very high-paying job, without having to become a millionaire first. Yes, you might have to make sacrifices, but those sacrifices now will pay off 2 to 3 years from now, and then you'll be able to enjoy your life from there. So that is how the rich get richer while the poor stay poorer, and how you can switch from one to the other. Thank you for watching. If you like the video, please leave a like, subscribe, and I will see you on the next one.